Good evening and welcome to the Ogden City Council meeting of April 12th, 2016. Please note that all members are present except for Councilmember Stevens, who has asked to be excused. Thank you. Has asked to be excused tonight. With that, I will turn the time over to Vice Chair Blair.
Thank you. Tonight we have Chance Harrison here, and so I'd like to have him come forward. He will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. So, a couple questions for you. Where do you live? What's your address?
736 Healy Street.
Yeah. And what troop are you with?
Troop 59.
And you just wanted to come and see City Council, or are you actually working on a merit
I'm
badge?
working on the Citizenship in the Community merit badge.
Well, we're here every Tuesday. You can just come and watch us if you want.
That's what I thought I was
Yeah.
doing.
You can earn your merit badge and fun here as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Who are you here with?
Oh, my mom.
Thank you for bringing him. Yeah. Well, with that, I'll turn the time over to you. And
Okay. May the audience please rise. Please repeat the Pledge of Allegiance after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
thank you, Chance.
Thank you, Chance. If you'd please take a moment of silence with me. Thank you. So we have a couple of things to request to be on the agenda, and first up, I would like to invite Betsy Byrne up from Envision Utah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm Betsy Byrne. I'm sorry, I'm going to have my back to you, but I'm Betsy Byrne. I'm a planner with Envision Utah, and I want to thank you for letting me come up and present to you today. I love Ogden. You guys are doing so many really cool things up here. I particularly love what you're doing with your trails and parkways, so that's a particular near and dear item to my heart. So some of you know what Envision Utah is, but I'm just going to back up for a second if you don't know who Envision Utah is. We are a nonprofit that was founded in 1997. We are a voluntary, nonpartisan group of partnership of business leaders, government members, community leaders, local officials, who are basically looking at Utah as we grow and looking to solve future challenges that are created by that growth. And how do we create the communities that we want? So we have a process that it starts with values. It starts with what Utahns love about this place and what they're concerned about as we grow, what they do and do not want to change about our community as we grow. We gather together stakeholders to think about that growth and what that will mean. Those stakeholders help us create scenarios. Basically look at, okay, if we do this, then we're going to get this kind of community. If we do this, maybe life is going to look like this. So we take those scenarios and we take it to the public to get their input, to see what they would like to see happen as we grow. And we take all of that information and we create a vision. What do we want to see as we grow? What kind of communities do we want to see? What kind of transportation options do we want to see? And taken all together, that's what we do as Envision Utah. And of course our challenge, like I said, we are growing, especially along the Wasatch Front. By the year 2050, we could nearly double in population. So what is that going to mean in terms of, where can we live? Where can our kids live? Can we recreate where we want to recreate? I mean, recreation is a really important thing to most Utahns. What will our air quality be like? And will we have clean water? So looking at all of those different aspects of growth. And basically, it's to keep life the way way we want it, have a good quality of life that we enjoy right now, that our kids can enjoy in the future. And that's really, it's really important. It's not necessarily we are planning for ourselves and what we want to see. It's what do our kids and our grandkids want to see? Will they be able to live here and have the same quality of life that we have? The last 3 years, we've been doing the Your Utah, Your Future Vision for 2050. It was kicked off by Governor Herbert in 2013, and he challenged us to look statewide, not just regionally at the Wasatch Front, but statewide, and consider 11 different topic areas, from transportation to energy to recreation and air quality, all different sorts of things. And we looked at those 11 issues, gathered 400 Utah experts together to help us gather data and think about those scenarios for what might happen in 2050. And then we took those scenarios out to the public and got almost 53,000 people to respond to a survey, to respond about what they wanted to see in Utah by 2050. And by doing that, we got the best understanding that we've ever had of what Utahns want for the future. And it's important to note as well, the 53,000, that was sort of a self-selected group of people. But we did enlist Dan Jones and Cicero to do a statistical survey to match that against the demographic profile of Utah, to make sure that we were really getting it right and hearing what Utahns really wanted to. And that statistical survey did align with that 53,000 people. I'm just going to go into one of the topic areas and do a few of those results, looking at transportation and communities. We modeled 4 different scenarios along the Wasatch Front and then also in Washington County down by St. George. And we looked at things like housing mix and the organization of centers, basically the pattern of growth and how we can access daily services, what our housing was like, and what our drive times were like. And from those scenarios, we presented the public with a lot of information so that they could choose which scenario they wanted. We said what those scenarios would mean for new developed acres, for the number of households that could easily access those daily services, what infrastructure costs would be like, and what the housing mix would be like. So with all of this information, Utahns overwhelmingly picked a scenario that involved communities that were designed for walking, transit, short drives, and a variety of housing types. And we pulled some of the data from Ogden and looked at how your responses specifically varied from the statewide responses, and they were very similar in terms of this particular outcome. Very similar. They wanted the same, communities designed for walking, transit, short drives, and housing variety. So what does that look like? That scenario was based on a deliberate, organized pattern of centers. And if you can see on the map, it's a little hard to see, but the little yellow dots are centers with daily services. And so that by daily services, we often mean like shopping, grocery stores, healthcare, schools, a variety of different things. And this scenario, it was guided by market forces, and it offered a variety of housing, and it was also based on being able to walk to some of those services or take a short car trip. So I'm going to get a little bit further into those centers and describe what we mean when we talk about that pattern of centers. Basically, you think of it anywhere from the range of a neighborhood center, which is maybe just a school and a church and a park, just a little, easy to walk to from your house, up to an urban center where, like Ogden, where it's regional services, it's maybe regional shopping that draws in people from surrounding communities, or it's, higher education or, cultural events, that sort of thing. So it's different scales of those centers spread out across the community. And just an example of sort of what that can mean, think of this as a neighborhood center. This is a school. This is Daybreak Elementary down in southwest Salt Lake County. And it's very accessible from all the houses in the community, the neighborhood around it, and has one of the best walk rates for children going to school in the state. And you can compare that to another school where, like if you live in one of those cul-de-sacs, you have to walk all the way around, or you get in a car and you drive. Similarly, you can look at this. This is a little shopping center in Provo, very accessible from all the neighborhoods nearby, also from sort of the city center, easy to walk or take a short car trip there. compared to sort of a big box store that's out in the middle of nowhere, disconnected from the neighborhoods around it. And what we want from centers, what we want from this range and pattern of centers, it's communities that are walkable and bikeable. They have access to public transportation. They have a variety of different housing types, so apartments, townhomes, single-family homes, places for college students to live all the way up to senior citizens. And also a mix of uses, so jobs, retail, restaurants, that sort of thing. People want networks of parks and trails. Again, recreation is really important to a lot of Utahns. Better air quality. If we are able to take short car trips or walk and bike, it helps us control some of our air quality issues. And then also it helps to lower infrastructure costs. If we're not installing as much infrastructure or having to maintain that infrastructure, that makes it cheaper for us. And this is not a new idea. We historically have done this. I pulled this Ogden map, which maybe you've seen or maybe not. It's really cool. But this is a historic pattern that was all along the Wasatch Front, all along Utah. The legend, it talks about those services that people want to access: the city offices, the churches, the schools, the businesses. So this is, we had this in Brigham City, we had this in Salt Lake, we had this in Midvale, we had this, all along the Wasatch Front. We kind of got away from it and got into a more auto-oriented pattern. And just sort of what that means is we kind of got away from the grid network and went to disconnected streets. We got away from sort of mixed uses to separated uses. And just, different from main streets, we have strip commercial, and instead of front doors on the streets, we have front doors on parking lots. So it really kind of changed the pattern and the quality of our communities. But we have some great examples of historic mixed-use centers that are still around and still successful. Ogden, obviously, is really has a great center. There are some new centers that have been established in the last few years. Farmington Station, if you've been down there, or the River Woods in Provo. And there are examples of revitalized centers. Sugar House in Salt Lake City is a really good example of an old center that has really grown a lot just in the last couple of years and really changed. So a lot of the Wasatch Front, really, it's built out. It's a lot of the areas have already grown. It's hard to go in and establish these centers and have new centers, but we have a lot of opportunity actually to go in and make some of those revitalized centers. And one of the trends that helps make that happen is there's a change in our retail and how we're buying what we need, and so brick and mortar stores are starting to sort of decline. Their sales are declining while online sales are going up. And that means changes for our like big box stores, strip commercial, older commercial areas. They'll begin to change and turn over, and there's an opportunity there to bring in maybe some more, some housing types, different apartments, maybe some smaller family, single-family homes, and while keeping some retail and providing some services like education or healthcare. And another trend that sort of goes along with that is this sort of decline in single-family home lot sizes. In Salt Lake County, it's dropped a lot in the last 30 years, and that's kind of happening in a lot of places along the Wasatch Front. And at the same time, the demand for some multifamily units is going up. This chart is for the 4-county Wasatch region, and it shows the orange line is the multifamily units. The number of permits are going up, while single-family units are coming down a little bit. So we have an opportunity to look at these commercial centers and maybe think about how we want to incorporate some housing and some other services. And maybe make something that looked like this into something that looks more like this. This is in South Salt Lake, maybe kind of like that. Oh, sorry. And then Salt Lake Depot District, actually, they've got plans in place that are going to look something a little more like this. So what we're doing now is we're taking this Your Utah, Your Future vision, and we're looking for ways we can extend that and implement what Utahns said they wanted, and actually do some of the things they say they want to see. And so we're working with Wasatch Front Regional Council, looking forward to the next regional transportation plan in 2050, and thinking about how maybe if this organization of the center pattern of centers can be used to be integrated with transportation to keep life convenient and a little more fewer car trips, more accessible to the services as we look forward to that next regional transportation plan. So that is what we are working on, and I welcome any questions if you have them.
Any questions?
All right,
No questions?
thanks so much.
I do have a couple of questions. So how are you helping cities? Are you looking at further with policy or helping cities help,
Yeah.
planning, those kind of things?
Yeah, we're actually meeting with a number of cities now and sort of beginning discussions of like, okay, where are these centers that have the potential to turn over? We're talking about, the market forces, like what is actually possible in those areas. We've been talking a little bit with some like Coldwell Banker and RCLCO about the market changes that are coming. So we've talked like with Holiday about. There's a little commercial area there in Van Winkle that they are looking to kind of turn over. Midvale, Sandy, Orem, just looking along the Wasatch Front and seeing, okay, where are the possibilities and can we help you plan that? Can we help you model some of those changes and what that might mean in terms of, transportation times or air quality, that sort of thing. So.
Any other questions?
I have a question that I keep hearing this statistic that we're going to almost double by 2050. And I look at our town that's largely built out. There's not a lot of empty ground.
Right.
We are increasing density in some areas, but how do you see that? Where's the additional population going to develop? Is that something you can forecast?
Yeah, those maps, those scenarios that we had that are very difficult to see, we took actually the population projections and we tried to model putting those into all the different counties. Like in Salt Lake County, we kind of figured we can only get so much, and we had to start spreading that growth outwards. A lot of it went to Utah County, the Eagle Mountain area. Some of it went up into Davis County, and so. We did look at some of that, and it is a little difficult to imagine how we're going to accommodate a doubling of population.
Well, and the other issue is, our natural resources like water. That's probably our biggest issue with respects to how much you can grow is how many people can you keep in water.
Yeah. That's a really big issue. And I think some of how our patterns of how we grow will affect that. If we have, smaller lots, that leads to less water use. But a lot of that is, our own personal habits and how, if we have water-wise landscaping. But it also, is affected by how we store our water. So there's some of that we can't really control, but we have to look ahead at how we're storing our water and how we can possibly provide for.
So those maps, are we able to get a little more of a detailed zero in on our area?
Sure, we can send you a detailed map of the Ogden area if you'd like.
Nice to see what is projected for the area that we have some control over.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
And Betsy, a couple times during your comments, you've mentioned, some of the ecological things, air quality for one.
Right.
Is this group working on the state level to try to have, tighter restrictions and really looking at our air quality? So many counties or cities try to develop their own, small policies for their own county, but then it'd be better if it was statewide.
Well, we have worked with the Clean Air Action Team, and we've worked kind of quietly with some of our action team members, the 11 topic areas where we had 400 experts. We had a number of people on that who are having conversations with builders and developers about how we could potentially change some of, how we build our houses, which has a huge effect on air quality. And I'm not sure if you're aware, the Ivory Homes recently said they were switching to 6-inch walls, which is going to have a really big impact on how much emissions come out of just, our buildings. And so that's a really exciting thing that's happened. We're working now with Provo, creating a Provo Clean Air Toolkit, which is a list of suggestions for businesses, the city, individuals for what they can do. And that's something that could kind of be taken and replicated across the Wasatch Front. So.
And if we wanted some of that information, we can just contact you and.
Sure. The Clean Air Toolkit in Provo, I think, is going live April 22nd or soon thereafter, and it'll be online. You can see it. But we would love to work with other cities to create similar toolkits if they're interested. So.
Great.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Love Ogden.
Go on.
You too.
Come back again. Next on the agenda is Christmas Village, and we're going to have a presentation by Luann Kamagaki.
Chair, I asked Perry first to get up and just introduce
Oh.
the Christmas Village staff, and
Thank you.
if that's okay with you.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Sorry, Perry.
That's right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Vice Chair, members of the council, Mayor Caldwell, and Mr. Johnson. We're excited to be able to look at one of our very important functions known as Christmas Village. Our new chair, Luann Kamagaki, is going to be giving that presentation, but we also have some other members in the audience, and I'd just like to introduce them. We have Luann, Nikki Lavelle. She was our past chair. And on the back row, we have Brenda Burrup, Cindy Hellowell, and there's a column in my way, but I know Ernie Terrazas is back there, and I know Stacy Olson is as well. And Ashley's back there as well. We're really excited for what they do for us and for our community every year and what they put on, because without them, we don't have Christmas Village. So without further ado, Luann, it's all yours.
I'd just like to thank the council for allowing us to come tonight and present the Sunset Report. Also for the mayor to be here to hear our report. My name's Luann. I'm the chairperson for the committee this year. Because Stacy told me she already presented you with a copy of the report, I won't read it. I'll just hit the highlights and we'll make it short and sweet. We are a holiday tradition that began in 1962. We have managed to grow from cottages that there was only 12. Then we're up now to 62. They are surrounded by 132 metal lighted trees. We have quality entertainment in the amphitheater, a variety of holiday-related displays, Santa's Castle, and a mini train. The Christmas Village Committee consists of 14 members. We're business owners, private citizens, and we have a great city staff. Our city staff consists of Perry, Ernie Terrazas, and Stacy Olson. We begin the holiday season every year with a parade immediately followed by the lighting of Christmas Village, which involves a Make-A-Wish child helping Santa light the park. And last year we had the biggest fireworks show we've ever had. The festive night provides Ogden City an opportunity for good public relations. Donations from local businesses have greatly improved the quality of Christmas Village. Many new cottages have been built, and moving displays have been especially interesting and exciting for the children. In addition to the cottages, the Parks Division decorates the municipal gardens and the street trees along Washington Boulevard with approximately 700,000 lights. They also refurbish traditional statics and animated decorations. Santa and Mrs. Claus are in residence at Christmas Village, and the children are invited to visit Santa and his castle Monday through Saturday until December 23rd. Over 10,000 children last year visited. They receive a candy cane, and for a small donation, they can also have their picture taken with Santa. Mrs. Claus provides village tours during the day from 9 to 4. Last year, over 632 preschool children visited with her. Each child received a goodie bag and a cookie from Mrs. Claus. Live entertainment is offered in the amphitheater 4 nights a week. 3 acts appear nightly. Largely, there's school groups, dance companies, and individuals that entertain. The Breakfast Exchange Club sells hot chocolate, and they graciously donate to every performer a free cup of hot chocolate. They donate their profits to Shoes for Tots. A mini train offers riders a short ride through a neon-painted Christmas tunnel. In 2015, the committee took over the management of the Jupiter train, which offers riders on Friday, Saturday, and Monday from 6 to 8, a short tour down 25th Street, through the junction, and around the village. Also last year, we provided storytellers on the train who can entertain the riders as they rode around the city. The general store is available to anyone wanting a souvenir of Christmas Village. The profits from the store are reinvested into Christmas Village. Last year, a concession stand was opened in the amphitheater. This allows visitors to have a warm bowl of chili or a hot dog. Our future plans, we would like to continue to add cottages, static displays, and animated figures. This may involve electrical upgrades to the existing system. The village is also looking to continue with the tradition of Breakfast with Santa. It used to be run by United Way. For the last 2 years, it hasn't been, so we're just looking at the option that maybe we can incorporate it into the Christmas Village tradition. We are also looking at having a 20-foot computerized tree in the park that will play music and provide dancing lights and visual sequences on that tree. We're trying to buy it in pieces. Last year we bought a part of it that we used as a billboard, but hopefully we can get the rest of it and have an actual computerized tree. A bit of good news for Ogden City this year. Christmas Village was ranked in the top 10 best Christmas destinations in the United States by national magazines. Homeowners Insurance, the Huffington Post, Fedor's Travel, Business Insider, and New York City Rockettes blog all listed Ogden as one of the top destinations for Christmas. Thank you for having us on the agenda, and if there's any questions you'd like to ask or I could answer for you, I will certainly try.
Luann, just first, what a beautiful gift this is that we give to our community. I've lived here my entire life, and it's become a family tradition. And I have family that come from all over the United States back at Christmas time, just for Christmas Village, so thank you.
It's kind of a labor of love for us because it's free to all the children. No matter, you don't have to pay for it, you can just come and look. And when you ride on that float, and I know you guys have ridden on the float, when you see their little faces at night, it is worth every minute we spend on the village.
I echo Councilmember Garner's. It's been a very traditional thing for my family. It's just been we've taken it for granted, I'm sure, but as you go other places and you see that they don't have near what we have, it's an eye-opener. You and your committee do a wonderful job, and we thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, if I could, I'd just add one quick thing. On all the interviews I get, we get Fox 13 and Channel 2 and everyone else come up. I say we're in a real heated competition with the LDS Temples event downtown, and I think we're pretty close. So you guys do a great job, and all of the volunteer effort that goes into this is astonishing, and I would offer my gratitude to that unique group of people that give so much as well.
Now we're doing the committee.
Well, with that, I will go ahead and make a motion that we adopt the the annual report, proposed ordinance 2016-24. There it is.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Blair, second by Councilmember Heyer to adopt the ordinance. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Garner.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Vice Chair Blair.
Aye.
Chair White.
Aye, that passes. Next on our agenda is common consent items.
Chair White, I'll make a motion that we adopt consent items 5A and 5B.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Garner and second by Councilmember Heyer to adopt the common consent items. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. And with that, before we leave, can you just, everybody on the Christmas Village Committee, please stand again, and I would like to give you an applause. So, thank you. Next on our agenda items are the reports from administration. I think,
Mr. Stratford is handling these. He looks pretty snazzy tonight.
My best jacket out for the occasion. Chair White, council members, and administration, I'm excited tonight to discuss some changes to this, some proposed changes for your consideration to the city's Percent for Art program. Currently, and for a number of years, the city has funded tangible art on public projects, public buildings, and other things like that through a funding mechanism of 1% of each capital improvement project that is devoted to art. Originally, I think there was some idea that mostly we would be dealing with buildings like the public safety building or the public services building, and that we would be using 1% of art for art on those buildings. But as it's turned out, a lot of art actually has been placed in other locations that are not necessarily site-specific. For example, in the Junction, you have kind of an airplane art piece in the public space there, and also on the river you have the solstice piece. And so it's been a good program for the city to generate public art, for the community to see art and interact with it. But over time, it's been some concerns that maybe we need to make some modifications to how that process works. In particular, there's a need for more consistent and reliable funding. Currently, depending upon how many projects we have, that determines the budget. In some years, we don't have a lot of projects, and so not very much of a budget. And in other years, we have a lot of projects and a lot of funding. And it makes it difficult to plan for public art in a way that is really consistent and coherent. And so there's a need for a more reliable funding source. Also, there's been a desire to have your involvement earlier in the process. When the original plan of doing art with public buildings came along, I think everybody felt like, okay, well, we see these buildings coming along, the council will know what's going on with the art. But as we've done more standalone projects, the council generally hasn't really been able to be involved in those until quite a ways later into the project, and there's a need to make sure that you're involved sooner. In addition, there's a need to make sure that people who are affected by the decisions, especially to do standalone art, the people who have to maintain it, the people who are expected to make space available for it, that they have an opportunity to be involved. And finally, a need to recognize some of the evolving forms of art, and the fact that the way that the public enjoys art today is not the same as it has been historically and as is envisioned in the current ordinance. So with that, I'm going to move to the individual ordinances in your packet, and I'm actually going to go kind of in reverse order, well, not kind of, actually in reverse order, and talk about Ordinance 2016-23 first. That starts on page 147 of your packet, and this particular ordinance kind of just deals with issues around the art program and how we support it and how we fund it. And so the first thing that Ordinance 2016-23 does is clarifies that the Director of Community and Economic Development is responsible for the administration of the public art program, and including recommending to the mayor the adoption of policies and procedures to select art and maintaining information on artists. This is not a new assignment, but it wasn't clearly spelled out in the ordinance in the past, and so it's just a matter of clarifying the practice that the Community and Economic Development Department has. The next thing that ordinance does, going on to page 3 of that particular ordinance, is it recognizes the creation of a new subcommittee of the Ogden City Arts Committee. Currently, Ogden City Arts has what's called a design subcommittee. And when it's time for an art project to be implemented, that design subcommittee helps to draft proposals for artists to respond to, and then reviews the proposals that come in. But as we talked about earlier, one of the challenges we have is making sure that we deal with issues up front. And so now the idea is that we'll create a review subcommittee that will review potential public art projects. And what they will do is they will compare that against the master plan for art and culture that you will be seeing in a few months, and that they also have an opportunity to evaluate that in the global picture, so that instead of getting things one at a time or randomly, that they are able to do a thorough review and then make recommendations to the administration and to the city council about appropriate projects and funding of projects. That information goes on to page 4 of that ordinance, where it identifies who the members of that subcommittee will be, of that review subcommittee. Will include at least 3 members of the Ogden City Arts Committee, as well as the planning manager, the public services director, and the management services director. And those 2 directors are primarily responsible for maintaining public art and finding places for public art. And so they have an important role in having their voices heard early on in the process to know that a space is appropriate or can be used for public art. The next thing that that ordinance really does is outline the specific funding amounts that come into that are proposed to come into the Public Arts Project program. And that is that there would be $35,000 per year from BDO lease revenue. That comes off of the top before you make other decisions about capital projects and whatnot. And then that is supplemented with money from the enterprise funds. Includes $40,000 from the water utility, $15,000 from the sanitary sewer utility, and $10,000 per year from the storm sewer utility, for a total of $100,000 per year. So that's what Ordinance 2016-23 does. If you're inclined to approve that at the time that you make your motion, I would appreciate one amendment, and that is on page 4 of that ordinance. Currently refers to the Arts Master Plan. And that was old language. Now that we're working on a new plan, it is called the City Master Plan for Art and Culture. And so I would ask that somebody make a motion to change the reference to Arts Master Plan to the Master Plan for Art and Culture on that ordinance. The next ordinance is really the details of how the new public arts program will work, and that is Ordinance 2016-22. And what the proposal there is, it's kind of a long ordinance, but the reason is that we are proposing to delete essentially the entire current ordinance that deals with public art and replace it with the new language and the process that I'm about to describe. One of the things that I mentioned when I started was the concept of what is art. Historically, art, at least in the Percent for Arts program, was envisioned as primarily physical art that you can see and touch, and it's permanent, it's not going anywhere. And we would still include that, and probably would expect that that's the primary kind of art that will be funded through the public art program, but that also there's an opportunity to allow the funding for what's called ephemeral art. And if it's okay, I'll actually just read the definition of ephemeral art, which is art which by its nature is fixed at a temporary place and time, such as live music or dance, lighting not intended to remain as a permanent installation, and art constructed of non-durable material, such as sand, chalk, ice, or organic materials. And you may have noticed there are a lot of places now where this kind of art draws a lot of people to a community. They know that, hey, it's not going to be there forever. I want to go and I want to see this art while it's in place. And whether it's snowshoe designs on a golf course, or whether it's temporary lighting that is up for a short period of time, or sometimes you'll see flower. People will make decorations out of flowers or out of sand. weekend, and then it's gone. So there's an opportunity to fund ephemeral art, both as a part of a formal reception when we do a physical art project that's going to be there for a long time, but also even on its own. And so that's an expansion of what would be allowed to be funded through the Public Arts Project. And as I mentioned, we still will have physical art. For example, at the new fire station, there's going to be art at that location. There will still be art at new public facilities. But really, this is an opportunity to do a better job of defining and figuring out how we'll do standalone art that isn't necessarily associated with a specific public building. The other things that this ordinance does is it clarifies that any funding that isn't spent in 1 year for an art project will carry over from year to year to year. And so if there's a goal to do a large art piece that requires more money than you can accommodate in 1 year, it allows that money to be accumulated. It also specifically provides that of that $100,000 a year, $2,500 each year will be set aside for maintenance of arts projects. There's a description of how the funds that are available are allocated, and this is really where the council gets the opportunity to step in earlier than it used to. So what will happen is each year the arts coordinator through CED will go out, solicit proposals for art projects, get all of those together, and there will be an information statement prepared for each one of them. And the ordinance describes what's going to be included in there, a map of the location where it's going to be at, how it fits into the goals and objectives of the art and culture master plan, kind of the budget for planning, design, construction, and the location, other information that will help to explain what is being proposed and why it should be justified. After all that information is gathered and reviewed, then it gets submitted to the City Council, and none of these projects can be constructed or funded until the City Council approves the funding for the projects that it approves of. And you will do that as part of your regular budgetary process. This will really kick in for fiscal year 2018, since we've already kind of passed most of the dates that we have set here that would have applied to fiscal year 2017. But you should be getting those kind of as a package, similar to the way that you get CIP projects as a package, and then you kind of work through and figure out how to fund those. There is a recognition that in some instances, certain projects might need to be funded in the interim. There's a process for those projects also to be proposed, to go through a process and to get to you for funding if the circumstances are appropriate. Once you've approved funding, then as I described previously, the design subcommittee takes over, does its traditional thing. There's really not any significant changes to the way that the design subcommittee works, except to clarify that in addition to the other people that have historically been on that design subcommittee, that we specifically want the director of any building who's going to have art associated with it involved in that group. And historically that's happened, but we wanted to make that express in the language. So example, the fire chief is involved with the design subcommittee for the fire station, since they're going to really own that and it's going to affect their project. And then once that design subcommittee does its job, then they forward between 2 and 5 recommendations to the mayor for his review, and then the mayor will select one and inform the council what's been selected. Just to clarify one thing about what you will see when you get these proposals, you won't get something that is a mock-up or that is a complete design. That won't happen until funding is approved and the design subcommittee puts out an RFP and gets proposals back. But what you'll get is the idea and the location. So you'll have an idea about the mass and the size and the theme of what's going to be involved, and then the design subcommittee carries out the actual selection and recommendation of the mayor of the artist. So that's what the program proposes to do. I'm open to any questions or clarifications that you might be interested in.
Is there a specific time that these people will meet, or is it as ad hoc? Or
Well, so the recommendation to you, that's the one hard date in all of this, is that you are to receive the recommendations from the review subcommittee on the third Wednesday in January. And so the CED department will work with them to meet before that. There's no hard specific deadlines in the ordinance. Now, they will come up with their own internal policies to make sure that they have enough time to do that. And then the design subcommittee really won't be able to do anything until after July, until after the budget's been adopted. And so then they'll meet after that. But the one hard deadline is just that third Wednesday in January. And at the same time they make their recommendation to you, they also make it to the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission does a review just to make sure that if it's proposed to go in a park, that that's consistent with the rest of the general plan, that the location of the art is not going to interfere with some other public use that's anticipated for that public space.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I might, I understand the definition of ephemeral art, but I don't know when we spend money on it. When do we spend money on ephemeral art, and for what occasions and those kind of things? Nothing is hitting my mind.
So there's two times that ephemeral art would be funded. One is, so in the project scope, say for the fire station, if they wanted to have some kind of ephemeral art at the unveiling of that piece of work, they should include that in their budget to say, okay, we want $15,000 for this art and we want $500 for ephemeral art at the unveiling. But that's part of the overall budget.
So an ice sculpture or something?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I'm
correct.
with you now.
Okay. If somebody proposes a project and all that project is ephemeral art, then it gets submitted just like any other project. And you will see that as one of the potential art projects to be funded that following fiscal year.
Would like flower bed pictures and things, would that be ephemeral art? I'm thinking of, well, a good example is when you go into Disneyland, there's the big flowers and things, and it's got all that stuff there. Is that enough? Is that an art project? Would that qualify?
From my perspective, that is probably somewhere in between. Now, it's up to you, I suppose, to decide at some point, but the definition of ephemeral art is something that is fleeting, that doesn't stay for a long period of time. And so ephemeral art itself is not going to stay for a long time, and the kind of thing you're describing generally is going to stay for years on end if you're doing some kind of topiary. What's that?
It's going to die every
eventually.
Winter. Yeah. Well, I know there's some of that kind of thing at Union Station, and and I can see that there's opportunity for it elsewhere here on municipal gardens, things like that.
But the other way that ephemeral art like that, which is longer term, would probably already come in is that the ordinance already describes art potentially as artistic design of bridges and roadways and other kinds of public features. And if that's the case and somebody wants to do something artistic associated with a public feature that's not really like, hey, look, here's a piece of art, but this is an artistic kind of design, landscape design, that can be approved, but it really wouldn't be called ephemeral art at that point. It would be just more of the traditional art. The difference is that we want it to happen on purpose. And so we don't just say, okay, we're going to put in a flower bed and, oh, hey, let's make that artistic. No, if we're going to fund it with a Percent for Arts program, we're going to send out a call for landscape designers to submit proposals about how they will do that. And so it will be intentional art, not accidental art.
Okay.
So yeah, there will be an opportunity for those.
All right, thank you.
Mark, in our study session on this item, I had a couple questions, and one that I didn't get a chance to ask, but I wanted to, is do you know the balance of the carryover fund currently?
I'm going to have to guess a little bit at that. I did give you in your packet a history of contributions to the account, but that didn't list the actual amount that's currently in there. My understanding is that the maintenance account has about $60,000 in it, and the Percent for Arts program, which will be converted now to the Percent for Arts program, is about $500,000 or $600,000.
So it would be used at the discretion of the committee. Okay. That balance, or the pooled fund balance will in future fiscal years?
The committee will make recommendations, but no art fund projects can be funded without the council approval.
That's what I meant.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, and that will apply to the new money as well as the existing money.
Okay. And then it's the intent that we don't spend any, that we appropriate no more than $100,000 to this program? correct?
Annually.
Annually.
Yes.
I'm just curious how you arrived at that number, because the median, I saw you calculated the medians in our packet. The 9-year average was 140,000, and the 8-year average, there must have been one outlier that you removed.
So,
to
yeah.
come up with 80-something thousand?
That's correct. In 2008, we had a $50 million bond for water and sewer projects, which meant that we had a huge $500,000 contribution to the art fund on that date. And so we kind of put that aside because it was kind of one-time money. Since then, it's been about $80,000 a year, but again, it's been up and down from year to year. And the sense was that $100,000 provided money for the maintenance account and to actually do a couple of projects potentially a year through the art program. And if the council decides at some point that it wants more than that, we'd have to change the ordinance. And if you want less than that, you don't have to change the ordinance. You just don't approve as much in the budget for it.
Did you consider using at least 100,000 rather than up to 100,000?
Yes. Well, the answer is that the cap was on purpose. Part of the reason is that we don't have the Art and Culture Master Plan in place yet, and that will potentially help define whether or not $100,000 a year is adequate or not. But at least to begin with, the concept of a cap provided a number to work against rather than just some other number. And so as we go along in the process, we can determine if we need to do more or not.
Okay. And I like the idea. I mean, I understand that it's this council's responsibility to revisit that number each year. So I just want to say that and that's why I asked the question in the work session about what was the committee's feedback on this proposal, because I don't want the community's perception to be that we're walking away from arts or reducing our investment in arts, which is why I focused on those two numbers so specifically. I think we need to just say on the record, I'd like to say on the record that this ordinance does not reduce the amount of money that annually goes to the arts in our community. There are years where there is more and there are years where there is less, but it provides some more consistent, stable funding, and I hope that it stays that way, and I know that's our decision to make as a council. I hope it remains.
That's correct. And in reality, quite honestly, this probably, even if you look at the 8-year average, which is pretty high, but if you look overall, this is an increase to this program, and really probably by at least $10,000 a year more than it's really been funded by. And so, no, there is really no reduction. You are correct in that, in the amount that's being committed to this kind of art. And again, for anybody else, I think you're aware of this, but this has nothing to do with the arts grants process. The money set aside for arts grants is completely separate from the money we've been talking about for these kinds of programs.
Thank you, Mark.
And in any notification, because it's coming out of water and sanitary and sewer, storm sewer, do we have to do notification?
Yes, so any money that's transferred from an enterprise account to the general fund does have to be notified to the public. The city has chosen to do that in association with the annual budget. That's the other advantage, two advantages really of the way this is proposed, is that because we are doing the art funding in association with the annual budget, that notice will be a part of the notification that is already going out for the tax portion and the 12% that you review every year. And so there will be public notification as part of that process.
Comments?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time to do all this.
So with that, Chair White, I'd like to, pardon?
We have to have public input. Sorry. So now is an opportunity for public input regarding the arts, regarding this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were at comments. Excuse me.
Seems there's no movement for this ordinance. I will make a motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2016-22.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Garner and second by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2016-22. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Garner.
Aye.
Vice Chair Blair.
Aye.
Chair White.
Aye. That passes.
And with that, I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2016-23, amending the language on page 4 to substitute master plan for arts and culture, every place that arts master plan is listed.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer and second by Councilmember Lopez to adopt proposed ordinance 2016-23 with the changes. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Garner.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Vice Chair Blair.
Aye.
Chair White.
Aye, that too passes. Excellent. Thank you again for all your hard work, Diane and Christy. I see you out there, so I appreciate all your work. Next on our agenda is an opportunity for public comments. This is your opportunity to discuss any ideas or topics. Please come up and address the.
Introduce
please state your
myself.
name and your address.
I'm Kathy Darby, and 4069 South, 3600 West, in West Haven, Utah. And sir, that's where all those people are moving. I can't even get out of my subdivision.
Yeah.
There's so much construction going on out there. They're laying water pipes everywhere and tearing up 4000 South. So I'm here to introduce myself, though, to all of you, just to let you know that I'm running for Utah House of Representatives in District 9. So my area encapsulates a very small portion of Ogden. So I will say to people, do you think you live in my district? And they'll say, yeah, I live in Ogden. And I'll say between 12th and 27th below Harrison, because that's pretty much the box of Ogden that I have. But I do have all of your businesses. So I'm going to start coming to your meetings and listening to what's going on here in Ogden. I've been doing a little bit of research. I also have Roy, and I went to their meeting. I didn't realize how many of you there were, because there's less in Roy and West Haven, less council people. I'm sure you have a larger city. So I was just going to tell you a little bit about myself. I know I only have a minute, but just to let you know how long I've been in Ogden. I was here, I was 9 years old when they opened Christmas Village. Almost hate to date myself. But I was born here in Ogden, went to Ben Lomond High School, and then I did move to Roy for 20 years, from 72 to 92, and then I came back to Ogden for a few years, and now I live in West Haven. So I've lived in all of the areas in my district. So I've been a public servant my whole life. I started volunteering over 40 years ago. In 1977, I lost a child to birth defects. So I started volunteering with the March of Dimes, and I was hooked. So I have graduated to the Executive Board of Directors at the YCC right now, and I've also been on the Executive Board at, in fact, the chairman at Enable Industries. Over in, I believe it's in West Haven as well. They've got a couple of places now. So I then worked for the federal government, and so I understand government, but my part of it's always been federal. So speaking of red tape, and I took calls at the IRS, cold, angry calls for 5 years. So there's probably not anything anyone can throw at me that I can't handle. So I just decided to do this about 2 months ago. And really the reason I'm running is because I think that pretty much everything I've done up to this point in my life, all the customer service, all the volunteer work with all the different types of people, all the diverse groups in our community, that I'm probably just a really great person to go forward to the state and take our perspective there from all of our people that live around us and hopefully make some change. So I was on the front page of the newspaper with the other 3 ladies that are in this district. So it was probably about the middle of March, and so my head's still spinning. I've been calling lobbyists for 2 days, and that is a treat. I didn't know what I was getting into doing that. I had the advice to call them, so I've been working on that. So I'm following the Democrats. There are 3 main things that they're working on, but I also have a lot of issues that I would like to work on if I get there. And I know that you all have a lot of interest in a lot of things that are going on around you. Development of Ogden, your rebranding efforts are just, I can't even tell you. I mean, because really I was born here in 1952 at the hospital. So, I mean, I've been here my whole life, and I'm just, can't even tell you the changes that I've seen. So, do you have any questions for me?
No. But thank you for throwing your hat in the ring.
I have
And
my flyers. I'll leave some flyers and cards here. Check out my webpage, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
all right, and I'm sorry if I was one of those angry callers.
It's okay, I can handle it.
Thanks, Kathy. Any other people that would like to address the council? Comments from the mayor?
Yeah, a couple quick things. Ms. Darby, I'll add my congratulations to you running for public offices. We can all relate to is emotional, exhausting, and personal, and we admire the courage for anybody that will be willing to put their hat in the ring there. I'll say it was good to see Christmas Village get some well-deserved credit. Those guys worked tirelessly for months to put that together, but I do feel that there was one that was left out. Jay Louder, our public works superhero over there. Jay, thank you for everything you do so quietly and effectively to get those things done. You got a great group that does amazing work, so wanted to add you to the list of congratulations and gratitude. And then I would say, it was mentioned last week, it's Restaurant Week in Ogden, Utah right now. We've had a lot of publicity about that, and if you haven't been able to take advantage of that, we have amazing owner-operated restaurants and choices downtown. I'd put those up with just about anybody, and I'd encourage everybody to get out and really enjoy some of the unique things that Ogden has to offer. So thank you very much.
Comments from the council members?
Restaurant Week is going well.
Yes.
I've tested it out twice so far. I got 2 more before the 17th, which is the last day. But I encourage those people who maybe haven't been downtown for a while, good reason to come.
Good food.
Good food and great deals.
Chair White, I'd just like to make a quick plug for those of us who went down to St. George. I wanted to say thanks to my fellow council members and staff and administration. That was a really good experience for me, new council member, but it was really good to sit through a lot of different sessions, hear some of the same policy discussions that the administration's been hearing so that we can relate to what's being proposed. It was also a good opportunity to build relationships outside of this setting and outside of the setting of the agenda, so I appreciated those opportunities and encourage all to attend when can. It was a really good experience. Thank you.
And I just want to echo, Ogden got quite a few shout-outs in the big group. So we're not just getting talked about in magazines, we're getting talked about by our colleagues. So it was nice. It was a nice time. Anyone else? Thank you. We have a closed executive session on our agenda. We will be moving into the other room, and then we will adjourn from there.
So Chair White, I'll make a motion that we adjourn into a closed executive session.
We have a motion by Councilmember Garner, second by Councilmember Heyer, to move into the closed executive session. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Nadolski?
Aye.
Councilmember Garner?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez?
Aye.
Vice Chair Blair?
Aye.
Chair White?
Aye. That passes. Thank you.